This program is recorded and presented by Chippewa Valley Community Television.
Welcome to From the Newsroom, a production of the Western Wisconsin Press Club in cooperation with Chippewa Valley Community TV. I'm Henry Lippold, Professor Emeritus of Communication and Journalism at the UW-Eau Claire and a member of the Press Club. Well, today we're pleased to welcome Gary Johnson, brand new editor of the Eau Claire Leader-Telegram. Welcome.
Thank you, Henry.
Congratulations on your move to the top spot.
Thank you.
Now, can you, in a brief autobiography, tell us how you got there?
I sure can. I grew up in Jackson County on a dairy farm with three brothers who all went into the ag field. I chose not to. Hay fever had a lot to do with that. I much preferred writing. I had a high school teacher in Whitehall who encouraged me to go into reporting of some kind, whether it be novel writing or journalism. So we toured UW-Eau Claire, attended UW-Eau Claire, received my bachelor's degree there, had mass communications class from Henry many years ago.
Yeah.
After that, I went to work for the Arcadia News Leader, a weekly paper in Arcadia. I worked there for 5 years, which was a tremendous learning experience for me. I covered city government, county government, school government, Friday night football games. I took the photos. I developed the photos in the dark room, laid the pages out on Tuesday night. So I learned all facets of the news industry at that point. I got a job with the Leader-Telegram in our Rice Lake Bureau, and I worked there for 3 years. And after that, I moved down to the Eau Claire office, where I became the regional editor, eventually the local news editor, and as of about 3 weeks ago, became the editor when the editor, Don Hoopsher, retired.
Now, what does an editor such as you actually do?
Depends on who you ask. My staff, I deal with my staff every day on what story ideas. I help generate story ideas, but I go to them because the people who are on the street are the ones who really know what's going on. We pull things together for every day's paper. I'm intensely involved in the long-range planning, so I know what's going on running on this weekend's paper and the following week's paper, putting out fires along the way. For example, we've got political candidates coming and going as the primary approaches. I decide what we're going to cover. In collaboration with my reporters. I'm fortunate to have a fairly veteran staff, and they kind of know what they're supposed to be doing most every day. They come to me, they go, well, this is happening, I think this is good to cover. But I do all that coordination as well as the editorial page. I work with our assistant editor, Liam Marlaire, on the editorial pages to give an editorial voice that remain in opinions that remain separate from the general news.
So you're going to keep thumbs up and thumbs down?
I will keep doing that, yes, absolutely. Liam does many of the editorials now as we're sorting out things a little as we go here. I think it's going pretty well to keep it as a good quality product as it has been for many, many years, for over 100 years for the Leader-Telegram.
Now, you will write some editorials?
Yes, I will as we go, and columns if there is some, maybe just maybe something more personal view on, stand on something that really doesn't work as an editorial. Don certainly did that. Maybe giving the newspaper's point of view on something that we may have done that's gotten a lot of feedback, or even I did a very first column just introducing myself, kind of like I did for you.
LT staff retools. There it was. So we all could read about that. You mentioned the elections. Now, the Leader-Telegram has had a policy in recent years of not endorsing any candidates. Are you going to?
That will continue, yes. Don, when he took over 16 years ago, I think, implemented that. I mean, we try to do our best to give all sides of issues and candidates, trying to introduce candidates to people, and then basically lay it out for voters and let them decide for themselves. I mean, sometimes I think people think the lines get blurred in there between the opinions, editorials, and the general news focus. I mean, there should be no question about that. I mean, that's why, especially with local races and stuff, I mean, it's really a matter of personal preference on a lot of them. There's not like a good candidate and a bad candidate. It's what your preference would be.
Well, how do you handle that flow of letters to the editor?
There's a steady flow, certainly at this time of the year. And actually, 1 week before the election, which is today in this case, that's the last. We run letters endorsing or criticizing candidates. Because I think there was a perception maybe at a time that, well, we hold some of those for the last week so the other side can't get a kick at the cat. Well, this way we cut it off. I mean, we try to get, if you may have seen in the last week or two, we've had just a plethora of letters
Yes.
about candidates, whether it be local city council, judicial race, or the state Supreme Court, or certainly the presidential primary. We try to get in as many as we can, certainly local people as well. I mean, we get them from all over the country. If there's any question, we want to get local voices in the paper.
How much authority do you have as an executive there? Do you work with the publisher? Or
Sure.
how does that go?
Good. I mean, it's nice to be able to walk down the hall and talk to the owner. If you have a question about something, if we're thinking about making a change here, it doesn't have to go through a lot of channels. It's nice. We're still a family-owned company, have been for generations, and it does make it easier. I mean, you can get answers pretty quickly, and like I said, there's not a lot of levels of bureaucracy to work through. I mean, we can sit down and talk about here's some changes we'd like to make, and get an answer pretty quickly.
Now, does he have an influence over your editorial?
No, he absolutely does not. I mean, congratulate him, I mean, he's a businessman,
Yeah.
but he understands. He's been involved with the Wisconsin Newspaper Association. Peter Graskamp has for years, and his father, Charles, is actually in the WNA Hall of Fame.
Yes.
And certainly they understand the role of the newspaper and how the editorial department needs to be separate from certainly the advertising and other departments, and they need to be a separate voice.
Now, some newspapers, and maybe yours too, are running into hard times, declining subscriptions and
Correct, yes.
other things. How are you coping with that?
The whole country, every newspaper in the country has that issue these days. Certainly when the internet came along and everybody got used to the internet and was getting free information, they think they should get free information from every place. We have, what we try to do is our print newspaper, as opposed to our digital side,
Yes.
is we like to break our news on our website and explain it more in depth in the paper product. So you're going to get, maybe 4 or 5 paragraphs of some breaking news. We try to get that up as soon as we can, and then we'll expand upon that for the next days. So we're not talking about the same product then. If you want to get the full story, you need to get the print version of it. But we realize the immediacy and the competition out there from TV stations, radios. I mean, and
Twitters.
exactly. Facebook. And our reporters tweet from the city council, and we tweeted from Ted Cruz's stop at the Altoona Family Restaurant. We post on Facebook, linking back to our website always, so that we generate traffic to our website where they can see what else is on that, not just that one single story. They can see what else we have on our website then.
Now, is that going 24 hours a day?
They're posted. We can actually post stories. We can time them to be released at a certain time. Like we don't release our stories until after our deadline. We can set them so that somebody hasn't read it before the print version is out. We can run it, set it for midnight. We can set it for 6 a.m. You know, it can vary. So somebody doesn't have to physically be there pushing the button at that time. We can time it.
Now, what authority do you have over personnel?
I manage our staff of reporters and copy editors and photographers, and as well as our sports department. I work with them on hiring. We interview. Certainly, I've been doing that for many years. I did that in my previous roles as well. When Don was the editor, he gave me he always made sure I was involved in the process because I was the person who was working directly with the reporter. So I want to see the traits. I would call and talk to references, and since I'm working with them on a day-to-day basis, I really want to know what we're doing.
Well, now you mentioned hiring, but what about letting people go? That must be hard.
That's also it's part of the job, I guess. You know, it's not easy, but you know, you do what you have to do sometimes.
I know some people have noticed that Joe Knight and Blythe Wachter have gone.
Yes.
And that I imagine that's kind of hard.
Sure. I mean, everybody has worked together for many years, and it's never easy.
Right. You mentioned the sports section. That seems to be very solid.
Yeah, we have a really nice, young, energetic group of sports reporters. I mean, they really love what they do. I mean, and I think we do a lot of innovative things. Our special sections and our hoop scoops, things like that, our All Northwest teams. I mean, that's been going on for decades. And having said that, of course, Ron Buckley has been there for almost 60 years.
Yes,
and
that's remarkable.
He has the institutional memory of this entire community, especially the sports. I mean, if something happens, he remembers their father and grandfather doing the same.
Right.
Remarkable guy.
Now, we've been talking about what's going on, but do you have some goals that you've set for yourself in regard to the paper?
Well, certainly I think, you know, and many people have told me as well that Don has set a high standard here for the newspaper. I mean, because we've covered, you know, certainly controversial issues. I mean, we want to keep doing, one of our main things is to be a watchdog of government. And I think that will absolutely continue. 2 weeks ago, I was at the traveling show for the open records, and those people who came around from the state, just the importance of the open records law, the open meetings law. We use it constantly, multiple times in the past year.
Sometimes it works slowly, but...
It does work slowly, but eventually, as we like to say, the good guys win. But the good guys are the public. This information is, you know, it's their tax dollars at work. Their tax dollars are hiring these people and their job performance, and they have a right to know it, and we have the responsibility to make sure we're always making sure that government's transparent.
But getting back to my question, do you personally have some goal that you'd like to achieve?
I don't know that I have any personal goal to achieve. I mean, I would like to see this newspaper certainly maintain its high quality, to be the leader in this community for providing information, whether it be on print or digital platforms. Certainly, I want to see the digital platform expand even more. You know, as we need to get younger readers. We need to get the 20-somethings, the 30-somethings, like the ages of my children. I mean, they're used to seeing everything on their tablet or their iPhone, and that's the way we need to reach them. So if that certainly would be a goal, is to expand more and keep improving our digital product.
Well, that's where the action is, I guess.
It certainly is.
Everything's digital. Is it possible, though, that now you've shrunk, the width has shrunk, the number of columns?
A few years ago, yes.
Yes. Is there any possibility that you might have to go to a few days a week rather than 7?
You know, I would really, there's certainly no immediate plans for anything like that. I mean, I think people get used to, we don't print on holidays unless it's a Sunday, because that's our biggest paper of the week. But there may be, you know, if Labor Day falls falls on a weekday, we would not print. But otherwise, I think people are used to seeing the paper 7 days a week. I mean, I'm not sure which day you cut out. Do you cut out the Monday paper so people don't get expanded Packer results, Packer stories? You know, is it Friday? You know, before the weekend? I don't know if there's a good day you would want to cut out. So, you know, I certainly know there's no immediate plans for anything like that.
Were you there when they were still an afternoon paper?
I was.
And how did that shift go over to the morning?
It certainly changed the work schedules of people. I used to come in at a time, I'd be in at 5:30 in the morning, you know, and our deadline was like 10:30, 11 o'clock in the morning. So you get in and it's an immediate rush, you know, to get whatever happened overnight. We need to make sure we have that and we've got it all going, you know. Work schedule wise, it was probably better. I mean, if you're an employee, because I could be gone by 4 o'clock. Now I come in a little bit later, more like 8 o'clock. And we have a crew that works into the night. We have a night shift. And copy editors and a reporter. That we do a lot of the work during the day. There's more time to work on them, to go a little more in depth on some of the stories, as opposed to that breakneck speed we used to have to do to get the afternoon paper out. But this is certainly a better news cycle because things that happen, you know, we cover night meetings and you can read about it at 5:30 in the morning. We cover the school board and the city council at 7 o'clock at night, and you have that story on your doorstep the next morning.
That's true. Just a little anecdote here. You had a reporter who covered the city council, and they met in the morning, and the paper was coming out in the morning. So he would look at the agenda and say, this item's got to be closer up so I can get it in. And they would move the agenda item, and he'd get the story and still get it in by that 11 o'clock.
Back in the old days.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting to hear about what's going to happen with all the digital things going on. Do you get it? Well, I got two questions. One, you put out publications, especially sports. They'll put out a big volume of the upcoming. Do you supervise that? Is that part of your domain?
We have a sports, I ultimately supervise them, but we have a sports editor who supervises the day-to-day operations. I mean, we may, you know, talk about some things we're doing, you know, generally, you know, trends. I may give an idea for a trend story or something, an enterprise piece. But Joe Ziemers, our sports editor, does a very good job. I mean, needs very little supervision, certainly. I mean, it's kind of a different world. Also because all of their reporters work late afternoon and into the night, because that's when it happens. I mean, if you're going to be a sports reporter, which at one point in my career I had thought about, I was the sports editor for the UW Eau Claire Spectator. And I thought sports was going to be a career for me. Well, coming out of college, I didn't get a job right away. There were none in sports, but I got the weekly newspaper job, and once I figured that out, I liked it. My boss said, "You write good features, and you do a good job of this. I mean, don't limit yourself." So
well, I think your predecessor was in sports.
Absolutely. We have many of our news reporters who used to be in sports. You know, it gets a little difficult. I mean, it's always nights, it's always weekends. Once you have a family, once you have children, you know, you want to go to their sporting events. But I mean, our sports writers do a great job, and they're passionate for it, and it's a very strong part of our newspaper. My brothers and I used to fight over the Leader Telegram sports section, Ron Buckley's columns, when I was a kid.
And apparently your family has read the paper for many
entire life,
many
yes.
years.
Like you said, my mother, who was 80, sorry, Mom.
I think you said
she still subscribes to this day. I mean, and reads it cover to cover. I mean, it's that generation though that, I mean, they just cannot get it up, and they can't go without the newspaper feel in their hands. You know, and I'm of that generation as well, certainly. Whereas now it's more the cell phone in your hands, but you can still provide information to people like that.
Well, that's right. I mean, you can get your news on a little smartphone, and people then don't want to subscribe. Oh, no, I get it all some other way. And you're working to get them back.
Absolutely. I mean, because they don't get it all. I mean, there's no way that you can get all the information that's in the paper, you know, unless you get the e-edition. Personally, it's still. I'm from the older generation, I guess. It's just easy to hold and read, and I like that story. I like that story.
Oh, I meant to ask about the e-edition. Now, if you're a full subscriber,
Yes.
you have access to
You
that.
do. You do.
And what do you get?
You get the entire paper online as well if you
I've seen
subscribe
that.
to it. Yep, for free. Otherwise, you could just order the e-edition yourself. If you lived in California and you're an Eau Claire native and you wanted to get the newspaper, you can get our e-edition and get everything by getting a digital subscription.
That's pretty amazing. Here in the broadcast area, you can get us in France.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. It's
It's a changing world.
A changing world. Now you also, well, you've got an umbrella, and you have the Country Today in the umbrella.
Yes.
Do you have to do anything with them?
No, they're our sister paper, but they're completely independent. You know, it's all under the Eau Claire Press Company umbrella. They have their own staff, their own layout people, our own editor. We can use their stories sometimes. If they do something, you know, they'll do an ag related to the story. We certainly will use that. And if we do something, they can use it as well. You know, I mean, it's sharing of resources for the same company, and we certainly don't compete with each other.
Do you have any other ancillary publications under that umbrella?
What we do, we have in-house, you know, in the paper special sections. We actually do a business leader, which gets mailed out to businesses in the community on a mailing list, which we're putting to bed. It's a quarterly publication that we're putting to bed right now, today actually, for the next one. Our business editor works on that. And it's been very popular, actually. It's been well received by the community. I mean, those kind of niche publications are something we're always looking into.
Because you do publish quite a few other items during the course of a year.
Correct.
Well, let's see. Will Liam Allaire, is he the business editor yet?
Nope. Andrew Dowd is now the business editor. Liam has taken over as the assistant editor, and he physically lays out the editorial page. Andrew Dowd has been with the company for quite a while in various roles. Most recently, he covered the city council.
Yes. So
he's done a lot of the stories such as the Confluence Project and new businesses. So it's a fairly seamless transition for Andrew. He does a very good job, and he was kind of our backup business reporter before when Liam was gone, or there were multiple stories going on. So Andrew, it's going to be pretty easy for him sliding into that position.
Who will get the city council?
Julian Emerson is doing the city council. Julian did it years back. So he'll be back on Monday and Tuesday nights every other week, doing that as well. Does a real good job. You know, certainly shaking out some other stories that are maybe out on the fringes a little bit. I mean, it's a very exciting beat. I mean, that's where a lot of the business news comes out of the very first time we hear of something through the Plan Commission or a committee at the committee level. We really like to break those stories before they reach the city council.
What other beats might have are being covered by other people now?
That's the only ones that have different people. Elizabeth Domes covers our school board, which is very busy. She does a lot of higher education as well. Emily Mills does our entertainment. She's been doing that for about 2 years now. Eric Lindquist has been there longer than I have. He's our special projects reporter, does a lot of our Sunday enterprise pieces.
He was out yesterday at the
Ted Cruz, yes.
Visit.
Yep.
Yeah.
Christina O'Brien does our police. Dan Holtz does our courts, and everybody does a little of everything. Everybody is general assignment when we need them to be. You know, it's not a large staff, so we have to prioritize, and everybody knows that they may be called on to jump in to do anything. I remember the morning of 9/11. Our entertainment editor at that time just walked up to my desk with a notepad and says, "Where do you want me to go?"
You mentioned the size of the staff. Bob Brown, who's now here, Bob Brown has said that when he started at the Leader Telegram, all the desks were filled with reporters.
Yes.
But when he left, it was a different story.
There's fewer, yes. It's you try to do as much as you try to do what you did before, or at least as much as you can, with the personnel you have. I mean, it's we have a smaller staff like every newspaper in the country does. So we try to prioritize. I mean, we know we have to go here, cover this and that. I mean, and we think people need certain information. Certainly, government, what's going on with their government, as we talked about before. But a nice mix, and certainly with their feature stories. And
would you like to have had a reporter in Madison?
I think everybody would. State government news certainly in the past 6 years has been news daily. What we try to do, I guess, is do the best we can localizing those stories that we get from the Associated Press or elsewhere. With our local legislators, whether it be some school, whoever it affects, the man in the street, or the school system, or the city government, the impact. Rather than physically just covering that, we like to get the impact on the local people.
Well, yes, I noticed you always say how many local stories you've covered.
Yes.
And
because I think a lot of people don't really think about that. You're right, at the top right-hand corner of the front page every day, we say how many local stories are in there, because you're like, well, I see nothing. You might think you see nothing but national news or state news. Well, it's not really true. Once you start doing the count, it's local, it's hyper-local, as we like to say.
And the last, with that, we're out of time. Thank you, Gary Johnson, the new editor of the Eau Claire Leader Telegram. It took time away from your busy schedule, I know that. From the Newsroom is a production of the Western Wisconsin Press Club in cooperation with Community TV. I'm Henry Lippold. Thanks for watching.
This program was recorded and presented by Chippewa Valley Community Television.